Many gun store owners unclear if that applies to them, but maintain there's nothing more essential than protecting yourself. Mark Rylander with the Attorney General's office contends municipalities have some control over guns during a disaster.
However, local regulation of the sale, possession, and ownership of firearms is specifically prohibited.
In a legal opinion, Attorney General Ken Paxton says local governments can't use emergency powers to regulate gun sales. Clayton Neville, Dallas.
I'm Barton Eckert.
Please listen, this is important. Anyone can be affected by the prescription opioid crisis. If you think you've been hurt by Purdue or its prescription opioids like OxyContin, you may be entitled to compensation as part of Purdue's bankruptcy, but you have to file a claim. Claims may include overdose, death, substance use disorder, lost wages, and neonatal abstinence syndrome. A confidential claim can be filed by individuals, a legal guardian, by survivors or relatives of people who have died or are disabled. The deadline to file a claim is June 30th, 2020, or you will lose your right to file a claim. For more information, visit PurduePharmaClaims.com, or you can call toll-free 1-844-217-0912. That's 1-844-217-0912. Paid for by Prime Clerk, LLC.
I'm Reverend Peter Preble, host of Faith in America on WCRN 830 AM. On Faith in America, we hold conversations at the crossroads of faith and society. Faith in America, Sunday mornings at 6 a.m., right here on WCRN.
Okay, Mr. and Mrs. Lavache, you're all set with your mortgage, and I assume you understand.
2 minutes. Stack of papers, George?
That's right. And for future, just call this number if you need anything. And, ooh, yeah, I'm gonna need that pen back.
The mortgage process can be confusing. Looking for the right rate, the right term, and most importantly, the right place to get your mortgage. At Clinton Savings Bank, we are committed to getting the mortgage that's right for you. You may even receive up to a $750 credit off your closing costs. Plus, right now, you can lock in the rate from your pre-qualification for 90 days while you look for a home. So what are you waiting for? Definitely not this.
Oh, boy. Hi, Mrs. Lavache. How can I help? Oh, you're breaking up. Try again later.
Subject to credit approval. Offer may be withdrawn at any time. For complete details, exclusions, and credit costs and terms, call 888-744-4272. Apply at clintonsavings.com. NMLS number 422081. Member FDIC, member DIF, equal housing lender.
We know why you're awake. Your child is about to get their driver's license. Levante's Auto School offers 1-week driving programs to help make sure your child stays safe and focused behind the wheel.
877 Drive Ed. Who's Ed?
That's the number for Levante's Auto School.
Learn to drive safely and efficiently. Visit one of our 5 locations throughout Massachusetts. Click LevantesAutoSchool.com.
Levante's Auto School shows you how to learn the rules and keep your cool. Call 877 Drive Ed.
Who's Ed? That's the number for Levante's Auto School.
Hi, this is Brian Carpenter from One Worcester Homes. We're excited to offer the strongest buyer and seller representation throughout Worcester County and all the surrounding areas. Our agents are trained better and will look out for your best interests throughout the entire transaction. To reach out to One Worcester Homes, simply find us on Facebook, type in One Worcester Homes. We look forward to the opportunity to help you and your family in your home buying or selling transaction. And don't forget to join us the 4th Saturday of every month at 7:30 on Handling Change.
The following is a paid program. The opinions are those of the host and guests, and not necessarily those of the station or its management.
This is the Joe Mangicotti Show. Our topics are large and small. When you really need to know, we are the show. You want to know, it's time to talk to you.
Good morning, and welcome to the Joe Mangicotti Show on AM 830 WCRN, and of course our sister station AM 730 WACE in the western part of the state. We are, of course, live streaming on WCRN radio website as well as the TuneIn app. Just punch in WCRN and you can take us anywhere. If you don't have the TuneIn app, literally seconds to download it, folks. The call-in line is open and available at 508-871-7000. That's 508-871-7000. And our text line is 617-297-8388. 617-297-8388. Or you can email textjoeintheradio@gmail.com. So either text that number. If you can't text because you don't have the phone in front of you, but you do have a device, if you email Text Joe on the Radio, all one word, at gmail.com, it appears on the same screen, all in real time while we're on the air. At the beginning of the show, I also throw out our office number, which is 508-603-9778, and the business email is joemshow@gmail.com. Good morning, Shane.
Good morning, Joe. How are you today?
I'm fantastic. Yourself?
Moving along with 2020.
Yeah, and still things are okay with the isolation. I mean, you still get to go to work.
I still get to go to work during the week and on the weekends for WCRN as well.
There you go. So you get to go out, and I think you're both considered essential, right?
Yes.
The liquor,
indeed.
the alcohol.
Yes.
And that's a funny thing. Do you know why alcohol stores, distilleries, breweries are considered essential?
I believe it's to keep people's sanity.
Well, kind of. What it is the people who are alcoholics, if you cut off their alcoholic supply and they go into withdrawals, it will overwhelm the hospitals more than they can handle right now.
Right.
So they can't be bothered with people going into detox and having withdrawals. I thought that was a very interesting reason why liquor stores are classified essential. It's actually to prevent medical situations. Interesting, right? And of course, media, radio is we're the voice. Look at radio, folks, is the original social media. It's the original social media, right? We are the word of mouth. We have been here for 100 years and will always be here. So radio and media is certainly essential. 508-871-7000 to join the conversation. Lines are open and available. We have a lot to talk about. But coming up in hour 2, by the way, we have a very special guest going to join us, and it is Brigadier General Robert Spalding. This guy's resume is off the chart, right? I'll go through a little bit of it later on. He'll join us. Very impressive gentleman, but he has a book out, and we're going to talk about it, Stealth. It has to do with China. I have been saying, look, China it scares the bejesus out of me because, first of all, they're a brutal nation, and I know that gets watered down and soft-pedaled around here, and we have politicians and corporations regurgitating the Chinese, the Chinese talking points. But look just take a snapshot of what happened with the NBA just a few months ago. And we're going to talk about the data. See, data to China is what oil is to, say, Saudi Arabia. And they've been infiltrating our corporations and our universities for decades. But we'll talk to the general about that in hour 2. Lines open and available for the first hour, and I have a few things I do want to get out there. 508-871-7000. Let's jump to the phones. Bruce has been waiting. Good morning, Bruce. Thanks for calling. Thanks for listening.
Good morning, Joe. I do enjoy listening to most of the phone calls that you get from your highly educated audience.
Excellent.
Just really amazed at the cutthroat feeling that is out there right now, trying to combat a unknown, and it's really disgusting what I've been seeing out there. People attacking other people, and people attacking leaders that never saw anything like this. Start off with number one. The medical field in Massachusetts only buy to a crisis. So when they started getting word that there was a problem in China, they didn't start buying supplies then. And then when they did, we have stories of people stealing protective gear that are in the field.
Yeah.
Now we have people trying to set up testing sites, and they're already trying to catch up. And now they're yelling at the federal government to catch up and they can't catch up. So now you have businesses jumping in and trying to help out. You have vocational schools and medical schools in Massachusetts donating their supplies to the cause. So hopefully some of this will help, but I'm hoping when this is all over that the medical field in Massachusetts will buy more to being ready for a crisis than buying for a crisis.
I would.
Be good.
Yeah. Look, I agree that this has caught a lot, both federal, state governments off guard because we really weren't prepared with the stockpiles I think that we should have had. As far as the individuals go, Bruce, I think that the dedication we're seeing among the nurses and the doctors and the emergency people are unbelievable. I see the same spirit.
My wife is a medical assistant.
There you go. And look, it reminds me of the marathon bombing when we saw doctors and nurses shooting into. Look at the doctor that ran the marathon, got to the finish line, kept running right to Mass General, and went into 16 hours of surgery. So, unbelievable. We see the best of people come out in these circumstances, and we've seen corporations say, right, the cruise lines say, we've got these boats. Turn them into hospitals. House your people there. We've got schools. We have arenas being turned into makeshift hospitals. We've got all kinds of corporations stepping forward. And like the president was saying, I'm not going to use the Powers Act if I don't have to. Now he just did it though with GM. And basically, listen to what's being said. He did it because GM was a little hemming and hawing, and he said, "Fine, then I'm ordering you to do it. Okay, convert it."
We bailed them out. We bailed them out in 2008.
Exactly, and you have to remember this: when we bailed out all kinds of businesses back then, and I'm also going to say this to the charities out there that for years went to your local businesses and said, hey, we need a little help here and sponsor this and do that. Well, the businesses need your help now, too. And all of those people that got those bailouts over the years. Say again?
My Knights of Columbus is helping out delivering groceries.
There you go.
Different people in my local town.
Yep.
People, use your local fraternal charities. They will get their stuff to the people that need it faster than all the big-time charities. Use your local charities. Thank you.
Yes. All right. Thank you. Thank you very much, Bruce. Yeah, there was a group that started on Facebook for Worcester area to people sign up. I'm a member of it. You sign up, and people who need things can go to that page. And other people are saying, "Hey, I can do store runs for you. Right? Get to the pharmacy if you need it, the grocery store if you need it, whatever." There are other things out there, that we're not even thinking of at the moment that people need help with. So there are people out there, neighbors helping neighbors. 508-871-7000. Mr. Frost, good morning, sir.
Yes. Good morning. How are you on this great day? I had a comment from maybe it was Howie Carr, but how come the state government don't lay off? Those highly paid hack jobs at the University of Amherst and the Massport.
Well, here's the thing, Mr. Frost. They tell them they don't have to come in because they're non-essential, but they still get their paycheck.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's going to happen. They're not going to take the pay away. But look, they have told. I mean, this every time we get into this, whether it's a snowstorm or something, Mr. Frost, and the government says non-essential personnel. I can't help it. I know it's cliche. However, it makes you wonder if they're non-essential, why do we need them in the first place? Now, I know that's got a little tongue-in-cheek, but there is a little bit. I mean, seriously, there could be some trimming of the payroll. And it's not just the payroll, Mr. Frost, right? Our problem is we're married to these people for the rest of their lives because of their pensions. And if they take the option for their spouse, we're married to them for their life and then their spouse's life. And that is a huge part of our nut every year in our state budget is of course, the funding the pensions, right? So that, that's a tough thing. And maybe over the next few decades, we should look at phasing out to a different type of retirement program that isn't on the responsibility of the taxpayer.
You said you were going to try and get in touch with Jim Lyons.
Yes.
He's our guy to get rid of that the president calls it the deep state. I think we have the deep state here. And Jim Lyons is ready to cut if we give him some leverage. If we can just get behind Jim Lyons and give him some power, we can cut out this deep state and make us all a little bit better.
Well, absolutely. I did have Jim Lyons on this show way back when. I forget what he was running for, but it was when the show was called Conservatively Speaking. I did have him on. I remember talking to him. I forget what he was running for. Was it a state rep or attorney general or there was something? What did he run for before?
Well, he was at a small group around this winter. He's taking over the Republican state committee.
Okay.
From Kathy Hughes, and because we're getting strong, the Trump for Massachusetts people, we just had a standout at the Hyannis Rotary, heading to the airport down there.
Yeah.
We were 12 feet apart, because of the safe distance.
Naturally, yeah.
But we can still do things, and I'm sure with your help getting the word out in the air, we can fix things in the state.
Well, absolutely, and things are going to change a little bit during this election cycle because the calling banks are going to become more important, right? The mailings, the calling banks, the social media, because politicians can't do the literal door knocking and the meet and greet and the shaking the hands and pressing the flesh and gathering. So that aspect of the campaigning is going away. And actually, it's interesting because Holly Robichaud, right, who joins Jerry Doherty and myself, and sometimes the Colonel on Thursdays during Making Money Last on Political Thursday. She joins us every Thursday, and she made a great point that we have, first of all, we only had, I think, 12 representatives who voted against the gas tax thing. And look at folks, I'm warning you now, do not take your eye off that ball because while all we're distracted with the epidemic here, the legislature is going to slide in a 17 cents gas tax. But that's a whole nother discussion. But she made a very good point about candidates right now is the established candidates are very used to a certain way of campaigning, and that way of campaigning is out the door right now. We can't campaign that way, right? The rubber chicken circuit dinner thing and all that's gone. So this is a good opportunity to maybe help level the playing field in a campaign sense, because if you concentrate on phone banking, if you concentrate on the digital aspect of campaigning, you could be on par with an established incumbent. Now, you won't have the name recognition incumbent have and the other powers that come with the incumbency, but this is a good cycle. If you want to get into an elected office, you should get out there.
Well, it's Holly Robichaud, but there's another guy, Jeff, what's his last name? He's running against Ann Goldby out in Barrie. He has a good chance of defeating her.
Stephen Hall, you mean?
Stephen Hall. Sorry.
Yeah. Stephen Hall.
Yeah.
Great. Steve has been on the show multiple times. He's a great candidate. We'll have him back in again. I'm sure, Steve, if you're listening, make sure you call the office and set that up. But yeah, he's taken another run at that state Senate seat, and he's got a shot at it. I mean, this is the time to do it. But a matter of fact, I think I saw a post from him the other day. He's helping out. He's kind of suspended some of the traditional campaigning. He brushed off his commercial driver's license, and he's driving truck to help out and supply things. So I mean, there's a guy who's going to put the politics aside and jump into the help your fellow neighbor kind of mentality.
Well, thank you. I tell him I'm helping him out too.
All right, Mr. Frost. Thank you for the call. 508-871-7000 to join the conversation on the Joe Mangiacardi Show here on AM 830 WCRN. Good morning, Mark. Thanks for holding, sir.
Good morning, sir. Full lines today, huh?
I guess so. Yeah.
Yeah, I'll make this brief and chew up your airtime. What the United States should do, I hope the hell they do, is tell the Chinese, you're going to pay us one way or another reparations. And if you don't, we're going to cut off your wheat shipments, your pork product shipments, and your rice shipments. and you can eat your cell phones, and you can eat your flat screen TVs and your rubber chickens.
Okay. Well, I think, Mark, you're going to enjoy our guest in hour 2. It's Brigadier General Robert Spalding, and he has a lot to say about China. He has the stealth.
Could you ask him a question,
Sure.
the General?
Yep.
If you remember.
Yep.
Ask him if he's aware of the man who is the head of the World Health Organization. I forget his name. And ask him if he has any bio on him concerning his cozy arrangement he has with the People's Republic of China and how much the PRC has dumped in his lap. That's the director of the World Health Organization.
Good.
Could you ask him that?
You know what? That's a good question. And actually, I have WHO on my list here of notes to cover because I want to ask him about that. I want to ask him about 5G. I want to ask him about Wuhan. I want to about McCall and a lot of these cellular companies, our universities and our corporations, and he's going to tell us. Look at
China owns the World Health Organization. They own them, lock, stock, and barrel.
Yeah.
That's a fact. Have a good one, man.
All right, thank you, Mark. Awesome call. And let's get something straight here. China was not honest with us in the beginning. They're not honest with us now, right? As far as look at China's lying, right? The U.S. now undoubtedly is not number one in terms of actual coronavirus cases. I know that's what is being said, but China has been lying to us. They're saying China has nothing. Well, does that, Hong Kong does and Taiwan does. So is China admitting that Taiwan and Hong Kong are not part of China? Can't have it both ways. Increased diagnosis of coronavirus say nothing about the quality of our medical system, by the way. Look, Italy has far fewer diagnosed cases and 7 times as many deaths. So get a perspective and get a clue on that, people. 508-871-7000. Good morning, Richard. Thanks for holding, man.
Good morning, Joe. Yeah, are you going to have a show tomorrow?
Yes, 7 to 8. 6 to 7 will be Reverend Peter Perbel with Faith in America. I'll pick it up and do the second hour, 7 to 8 o'clock.
Okay, tomorrow at 7 o'clock, what I'll do, I'll explain to you about this 8 products that you can take for the coronavirus that, it'll help you and it'll stop it.
Yeah, well, the thing about...
I said it yesterday on WCRN. I don't know if you heard it on Douglas' show.
No, I didn't, but Dr. Amar Khan of the National Health Service, he's come out to give a warning because people are taking ibuprofen when you start to get a headache and stuff.
Garbage.
And that's actually will harm you. And after we're done, I'll do this as a courtesy to everybody. I'll read this statement from Dr. Mark Khan. But continue with your call.
What I'm going to talk about is all natural. It's all natural products, 100% natural, and I'll even give you the company that gives you 100% proof of the stuff. But anyways, I want to talk about what's going on here. Okay, first of all, the thing that you have to understand here, I don't know about you, but for me, it was all done by design. It was all to collapse the economy. In other words, this way here, they want to blame all this on Trump, which they've been trying to do, but it's not working. But the thing that we have to understand, we're broke. I mean, $2.2 trillion, Joe? Come on. Our debt right now is $23 trillion, right?
10% of our national debt we just authorized out.
Yeah, almost 50%, okay? But the thing that we have to understand here, we're never going to come out of this. I don't believe that we are, because I'm going to tell you one thing for now, all right? I went to the bank Monday with my wife, all right? And she wanted to take out not a large amount, but I mean a good chunk, right? And they told my wife, you can only take out $500 cash, right? And basically what it is, it's like I'm saying to myself, okay, what the hell's going on here? I told my wife, right? Well, I'll tell you what's going on, because I figured it out a long time ago. The banks are supposed to keep 10% of cash. That's 10% of their assets in cash, okay? What the Federal Reserve did last week, they came out and they said, that 10% you have to keep on hand in cash, you don't have to anymore. What does that tell you and me and everybody that's listening to this right now? In other words, if there's any run on the bank, you're not getting your money.
No, right.
No,
right.
No, you're not getting your money. And this reminds me of A Wonderful Life. Remember that?
Yeah, absolutely. The big scene on that. Now, the thing about that is there's no reason to be running on the banks. In the panic that's coming from this, and well, let me back up to what you said about it, started this out. And it's an interesting point. And you have to wonder, right, because we were having the most robust economy that we've ever seen, and the banks were very strong. Virtual non-employment, right? Women, Latinos, and blacks, lowest unemployment since record keeping. Great trade agreements with USMCA, phase 1 of the China agreement. All that's going on, and they have been throwing everything but the kitchen sink, including the kitchen sink, actually, at Donald Trump. But nothing was sticking. And then you have all of this come out, and it's clear that the media hyped this up a lot. Now, I'm not downplaying the importance of social distancing or the power of this virus at all, okay? It is very serious. But the media, remember the initial days of this, they tried to actually hang the moniker Trump virus on this.
Oh, yeah.
Tried to hang the term Trump virus, which absolutely has nothing to do with President Trump whatsoever, right? However, they tried to name it on there. So I'm wondering now, did China or the powers to be create this virus and release it, killing tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of people potentially? That's a scary, scary thought. Did they take advantage of the situation and try to hurt Trump? Absolutely, no question about it. We got the MSNBC, CNN, all these liberal media outlets. What do they say? We got a break in a second. Saying they're saying we're not going to carry the president's daily presser because his approval rating's going up, and he's coming off too presidential and too authoritative here, and so we don't want to do that for him. It's crazy. How long do we have, Shane? Because I don't have a clock. We got a break. Richard, got a break. You're welcome to stay, but I'm against the clock.
Hang on. I got a couple of things I want to talk about that I think people are going to be interested in.
All right. Well, I got to go, though, because it's time for Out with Joe on the Joe Mangiacotti Show here on AM 830 WCRN. We'll be back on the other side.
We're going to lunch.
We're going to lunch? This is Out with Joe. With Joe Mangiacotti.
Actually, honey, we're going to lunch.
Restaurants.
You can get anything you want at Alice's Restaurant.
Food and drink.
And when their ham and eggs need savor, coffee, ketchup gives them flavor.
Entertainment.
I like to have a little something going every day. Maybe nothing big, but a little daily recreation don't hurt anybody.
Have some bacon on a biscuit and let's go.
No. It's time to go Out with Joe.
Welcome to this edition of Out with Joe, brought to you by Nothing Bundt Cakes in White City Plaza in Shrewsbury. I'm Joe Mangiacotti from the Cantiani Insurance Studios. Well, this week we're going to take a look at the restaurant industry, some facts at a glance prior to the hit of the coronavirus. Restaurant industry projected sales for 2020 to be about $899 billion. Restaurant locations in the United States tops 1 million. And the restaurant industry employees, well, that comes in at 15.6 million people. And new restaurant jobs created by 2030 was projected to be 1.5 million new jobs. And did you know that 9 in 10 restaurant managers started in entry-level positions, and 8 in 10 restaurant owners started their industry careers in entry-level positions? 9 in 10 restaurant owners, 9 in 10 restaurants have fewer than 50 employees. 7 in 10 restaurants are single-unit operations. Restaurants employ more minority managers than any other industry, and 63% of consumers would rather spend on an experience than purchase an item. The number of middle-class jobs, that's $45,000 to $75,000, in the restaurant industry grew 84% between 2010 and 2018. That's more than 3 times faster than the overall. That is 3 times faster than the overall economy. These were the numbers and projections before the coronavirus outbreak. The restaurant industry is nothing if not scrappy. In just little over a week, many establishments across the country that may have never considered dabbling in delivery before have now adopted it wholesale as a means of survival in a new and frightening landscape created by the coronavirus. And a few have even taken things a step further, becoming a go-to destination for pantry staples, cleaning supplies, and yes, toilet paper, in addition to the usual carryout. Essentially, restaurants are becoming corner stores. If the shutdown continues for much longer, it's likely that many restaurants will start looking at these models to supplement income outside of just the food service. As concerns over the outbreak gripped the nation and calls for social distancing grew, eateries and caterers had a problem. Food was already prepped and ready to go, and clients were canceling events and asked them to do something else with the food, often suggesting that they just wanted them to donate the food to someone who needs it. In the past week, restaurants and caterers scrambled to keep up with the moving target of cancellations and en masse business closures, stemming from efforts to curb the rate of Chinese coronavirus cases. Many were left holding huge amounts of uneaten food and perishable ingredients. Now they're finding creative ways to dispose of those items and help provide food access in communities facing increasingly challenging economic environments. Food banks around the country reported a deluge of requests to rescue food from restaurants, companies, and convention centers as events were canceled and businesses closed. Office cafeterias and other restaurants in the area took to similar action, sending employees home with leftover.
I don't know. I just turned it on, but I don't know if it's going to work. But we'll see if it's
spoil. Here in Massachusetts, Governor Charlie Baker announced that the state would be expediting unemployment insurance claims for workers who lost their jobs due to the impact of the pandemic. That measure certainly helps food service workers who qualify for unemployment insurance benefits. We have suspended the Music Minute for this given week, given the current status, but for more dining and entertainment, click outwithjoe.com and follow us on social media at OutWithJoe. Out With Joe has been brought to you by Nothing Bundt Cakes in White City Plaza, Shrewsbury, on Facebook at Nothing Bundt Cakes, Shrewsbury.
You're listening to Out with Joe. Out with Joe.
Have you heard of the hottest new bakery around? I know you heard about it right here. My friend Al has opened Nothing Bundt Cake in the White City Plaza in Shrewsbury. Nothing Bundt Cake is a bakery chain and is locally owned and operated by my friend Al. They have bundt cakes ranging from bite-sized to tiered, plus platters, candles, and cards. Stop by and check them out. Everything is baked from scratch and on site. Nothing beats a sweet surprise. And until you try one of Al's bundt cakes, you haven't tried a real bundt cake. Stop by and ask for Al. Tell him Joe told you to stop by. 98 Boston Turnpike, White City Plaza near Planet Fitness, Shrewsbury, and on Facebook as well. Nothing Bundt Cake, Shrewsbury.
This is Wes Oliver with Prestige Home Mortgage from Handling Change. I can help you with all of your residential mortgage needs, from a purchase to a refinance or even an estate buyout situation in the event of a family death. You can call or text me at 508-332-4171 or on the web at wesoliverteam.com.
This is the Joe Mangiacardi Show. We are the show you want to know. It's time to talk to Joe.
All right, folks, welcome back to the second half of the first hour of the TJM show. I'm Joe Mangiacardi on AM 830, WCRN, and AM 730, WACE. As far as the tune-up, I've gotten your messages on Facebook. Our text line, which is 617-297-8388. Yes, Shane just looked into it on the streaming, trying to fix it. Should be coming up. Sorry about that, folks. 508-871-7000 to join the conversation. And I want to remind you, folks, right, that this is not an economic situation to begin with. It was a health situation. And we're coming from a very strong position. All the things I've listed, right? The banks are in good position. The unemployment was down. Companies were doing great. Revenue, like the income of the average household, has gone up. So we were in a very good position. Now, could you imagine this of hitting us if we were in the status we were in when the president took office and the Dow was at 18.5 then? And we went up from 18.5 to 29.5, 11,000 point gain on the flu. Right, and keep in perspective that the swine flu infected 60 million Americans. It sent 274,304 Americans to the hospitals, and it did result in 12,469 American deaths. All right, so the mainstream media didn't hype it up. There was no hysteria back in the swine flu, but there has been a lot of it here. By no means is it okay to have any acceptable amount of of deaths because of a virus. But we got to keep things in perspective, and it doesn't mean that we're going to snap back from this. But is it going to be a U, an L, a V? That's the question that we have out there. Now, Richard, are you still on the phone? Is Richard still on the phone?
I am.
Okay, so you're saying we're not going to recover from this, but we
we'll
can
recover, Joe. We'll recover,
and that's why I don't like to call this $2.2 trillion a stimulus package. It's an aid package. It's a Band-Aid. It's a bridge. They're talking about more coming. What I'm aggravated about is the bull in an emergency situation like this, the bull that they tried to stuff into the bill, the pork and the crap that they put in there, and they forced the president to take some of this stuff.
Exactly. That's what I was going to tell you. They forced him to do this.
But we also have there's $25,000 for the Kennedy Center for the Performing Arts.
$35 million.
The thing about that is arts. It also has a $75 million for PBS and NPR. Now the thing about this is guess who is on the board of directors of the Kennedy Center? Jarrett there. Remember her Jarrett and the other one. I'll think of the name in a minute. Right, but all of a sudden, what was interesting is that their website crashed as soon as that was released. In other words, when you went to go look up the board of directors at the Kennedy Center, you couldn't do that. But the thing about it, Pelosi, right? They're trying to slide in all kinds of, including ballot harvesting. All right. Now, ballot harvesting is something that I definitely was going to bring up on today's show anyway, because ballot harvesting is that's political jargon, people. It's for the practice in which organized workers or volunteers go out there and they collect absentee ballots from certain voters and they drop them off at the polling places for the election office. Now, coined by California Republicans, the term carries a negative connotation because it is. In other words, up until ballot harvesting, your caregiver or your spouse or something could do your go into the voting booth with you or pick up your absentee ballot. Can you imagine the fraud that would exist if you could organize people to go out there and collect all these ballots? Where's the integrity of that? At any time during that process, your vote could be switched out. Ballot harvesting, and then they tried to put in there about registering to vote online and voting online. I've always said this scares the bejesus out of me. First of all, one of my pet issues has always been voter fraud. And voter fraud would go through the roof if we ever went to online voting. Look at...
how many dead people would be voting now?
Know how many dead people already vote?
I know, but
they already vote.
How many would be voting now?
Yeah, it would be the worst thing. We have got to keep voting. Ballot, local, first of all, has to be maintained very local. You have to go into. Now, I'm not saying we have to do it the same day, right? That's kind of antiquated. That we all have to go in that Tuesday. I have no problem with saying, over this 3 or 4 days, you go in and you cast your vote. However, it has to be maintained on the local level with a paper ballot, or even the fill in the thing and you slide it through and it counts, but not electronic. Because we would get into an incredible amount of fraud if that ever happened. Okay? Happened.
There's a website you can go to called Cincinnatus. And if you go to Cincinnatus, they've got videos of people, changing ballots.
Ken holding too.
Like that's out there. You can find that. And there's other places that you can go and find all that voter fraud and different things. But the thing I want to talk about real quick, all right? This month there we had an auction for the 30-year bond, Joe.
Mm-hmm.
Right? You know how many countries out there bought a 30-year bond?
No idea.
0. You don't have to buy them again? The Fed bought it. But the other thing, real quick, all right? This stuff here came from China. Amazon and Walmart, they're going to be able to hire more people, and you have to understand, where does 95% of their garbage come from?
Yeah.
China.
Yeah.
Now, if China decides that they want to put the virus on the packages, that when you go to Walmart and you go and the guy delivers it from Amazon, they decide to put the virus on there. Guess what they could actually do to the rest of this country if they really, really tried? You got to stop and think about that one, Joe.
Well, we've always had that ability, or they have had that ability for this. Now, the thing about it, the coronavirus has a shelf life on cardboard, and it has longer shelf life on plastic. But we've been subjected to that biochemical type of warfare forever. Okay, this is just drawing a line to it. I'm going to have to go because the lines are full.
I'm going to let you go.
Richard.
I know you got other calls. I just want to let you know about China and Amazon and Walmart. You know, I'm just saying, okay, right. I'm going to go and buy all that stuff. All right, take care, Joe.
All right, thank you. All right, folks, I think the streaming is up and working according to some texts that I'm getting in. It is. So thank you very much. 508-871-7000 to join the conversation. Thank you. It happened somewhat. Okay, yeah, I guess we're up and running. Let's go to Ken. Good morning, Lieutenant.
Good morning, Colonel Joe. Lieutenant Ken reporting, having missed the first half hour.
Okay. Well, we'll have the podcast up later, so you can check it out.
Right.
Or go to the. Actually, we're streaming on Facebook. I think if you go to the Facebook, you can actually.
It is fine now.
Yeah, you can move. Oh, the streaming.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
It was just the first time.
And that's the other thing, folks, is if the streaming's down and you go to Facebook, you get the. I mean, you have to look at my face in Teddy. I don't think you can see Teddy, but at least you get the audio, so you could put the Facebook on and just shrink the screen. You don't have to look at me, but you can get the audio that way. What's that?
I don't do Facebook.
Oh, yeah. A lot of people don't. I don't blame them. I've got, look at the Joe Mangiacotti show has been put in Facebook jail I don't know how many times. I mean, I constantly get they don't like the political posts, right? And they say, whoever's making that decision, I'd like to know who it is. From one article I read, that most of these people at Facebook are coming from that whole left media type people anyway, so they're censoring and making decisions on my page, but they're imposing their leftist opinions and views onto conservative pages. So that's a little unfair. Look, I go back to that argument that these social media platforms have got to make up the mind. Are you a publication, right? Are you or are you a platform? Because if you're a publication, the same rules that apply to radio stations and TV stations and print organizations have got to apply to you as well. If you're a platform, then you have no editorial control over what's on our pages. You cannot have it both ways. They're exempt from following the same guidelines and being, subject to civil suit, say, if they were a publication, then they have to play by the same rules. You see what I'm saying? They're trying to have it both ways. They want to be able to censor who they feel like censoring and knock our distribution down, right? Our feed down if they don't like the tenor of our show or the tenor of our page. But they don't want to take the other responsibilities. And I think it's about time that Congress steps in and starts treating social media platforms kind of like a utility and impose some regulations. You can't have it both ways, people.
But you're speaking principles. Who's in charge of the House?
Well, exactly. And that's another thing, folks. You know what? If you haven't realized that you need to put the House and keep the Senate in the Republicans' hands and put the House in the Republicans' hands as well, just so that it stops. So the stupidity and the lunacy and the vitriol and the hate just stops, okay? Because we've been going on and on with this. Look, we had... I mean, the stuff that has come out, was it Rand Paul, right? When he was diagnosed with the virus, and it can be a deadly virus, and he's a very, he's in great shape, right? We all know Rand Paul's in good shape, but he's not a young guy. But Nancy Pelosi's daughter, right? She tweets, quote, Rand Paul's neighbor was right. In other words, he should die. He should get hurt. Now, is Nancy Pelosi going to condemn that? That's her own daughter. And it's amazing what the left has gotten away with saying about everybody that's connected to Trump, or even just people on the right and the conservative people. Beyond the shutdown, they have, look at Maxine Waters. What does she say? If you see anybody that supports Trump or connected to Trump anywhere, make noise, right? Gather around them, push them out of the establishment they're in. Don't let them eat out. Don't let them get gas. Don't let them do anything. You're a sitting member of Congress, and you're saying this. It has been crazy. It needs to stop, and I think that the American people need to say to the Democrats who have been doing this is that's unacceptable behavior, and we're going to slap your hand, and we're going to put the House back into the Republicans for at least 2 years for a term, and you straighten yourselves out.
Hey, walk away. Because it's those who are Democrats that need to carry out what you're describing. Walk away.
I got it. What else is on your mind, Ken? Hey, we're all in trouble.
Quick,
We've got Brigadier General joining us at 7:00. You know.
Do you have? Are you familiar with the Imperial College story?
No, but why is Imperial College ringing a bell? I heard that mentioned in the last few days. Why?
2.2 million will die in the U.S., 500,000 in UK. At least as of Monday. Then 3 days later, oops, we made a mistake.
Right. There was a retraction, something ridiculous. Okay, that's what that was. I thought I heard something about that. Look, you know something? We actually, Dr. Bricks, she went out there. Look, this is, again, we're back to the media, right, trying to just hype this up and spin everything. They're trying to create issues between Dr. Fauci and President Trump. Dr. Fauci came out to say, I don't even know what you mean by this question, and everything is fine, right? They're just going after all this. Dr. Bricks, she came out, and as a matter of fact, Shane, if we have that sound, she had to kind of appease some people because they were talking about respirators and ventilators, and oh my God, we need tens of thousands of them, and she's saying, look, relax. Do we have that sound? Because she came out and she kind of put everybody at ease. She had to come out and address it and say, look, don't be saying this publicly, even if you're thinking it in your mind. That's not the case, right? We have them. I think if we have that.
It's not on the disk drive.
If you look under the today's date, audio from today's date, you'll see Dr. Brooks in it for the 28th and 30th.
28th and 29th audio for show is completely blank, that file.
That's crazy. Okay. Well, we'll work on that. But the point is she had to come out and say, look, we have enough ventilators here. We have to make more just in case. But it just, look, you're getting two versions of stuff out there, right? You've got these people who are really panicking and saying, the sky is falling. And then you've got other people, and most of them are doctors, and they're from the task force saying, look, we just have to manage this and stop inciting hysteria. Relax. Just follow these rules, right? We've got these rules. I don't know if you got this, but I got in the mail, I took it out of the mailbox, brought it in with me, President Trump's coronavirus guidelines for America. And they're saying, follow these things. Now, we have a problem here, Ken, because we've had college students out there defying this because they're young and invincible and they're not going to listen to this. And then you got the jamokes coughing on items in stores, licking tacos, right, doing this stuff. I mean, the kid who licked the toilet bowl is now in the hospital. Karma is a real, where it comes to there. But you can't do this. There was something on, and I shared it on my Facebook page. Or no, actually, go to my Twitter account, Joe Mangi Show. And what it was is one of these digital research companies. They went to Fort Lauderdale and spring break. And they can actually, and this is amazing technology, right? So they get what they call unique devices, which means, Ken, your cell phone, my cell phone. So they look at it digitally and they watch the video. They'll show you the map and they go right into Fort Lauderdale at spring break. And the point that they were making here is we tag all these unique devices. Then they follow those devices. So all of these kids that went to spring break at Fort Lauderdale and they're on the beach. They tag their phones, and then they run a spider program. And that tracks them. And if you watch the video, you can see all of them light up, and then you watch them track them through the spider program where they went in the country. And you see just how transient the country is, in that, people from every corner of the country converged on Florida and Fort Lauderdale, and then they're back into up the East Coast, out to Ohio, Texas, all over the place. And it's very interesting to watch. Go check it out. It's on the Joe Magic Twitter page. You'll find it. And it's, I forget that. I can go look it up. I'll find it, but it's not right in front of me, the name of the company that does this. It's something like Cell Module or something like that, but it's on the account.
Well, I'm sure they're hired by the Chinese first, because Chinese have their tracking systems 10 times that.
That's true, too.
They know where everybody is.
Yeah. Yeah, and actually, the general is going to talk about that a little bit in an hour or two, because you've got these companies, right? And the cell phone companies are crazy. First of all, this whole thing to do with 5G, which, by the way, originated in Wuhan, China, and then there's the theories out there, folks. And I don't know if anybody's heard about all this, but you've got experts talking about the electrification of the planet. And that every time that it seems that we've had this global change in our electricity, there's been viruses released. And viruses are when our cells release an excursion to clean itself. And that's basically what a virus is. So you had the Spanish flu in 1917 and 1918. Well, what happened around the globe? The invention of radar. All of a sudden, because of World War I, we put up these radars all over the place, which, now 5G is basically microwave level of radiation that we're putting up. And it began in Wuhan, China. All right. We had, we had other viruses hit us in the late 60s and 70s when we were filling the atmosphere up with satellites and electrifying the planet even further. So the issue with it, and by the way, 5G, the reason China is pushing for the 5G so much is because they want to take the computing away from the Apple and Android phones, and they want to control it. And he'll talk about this, how back in the early 90s, China built this incredible firewall so that they could do this hacking and controlling of data all over the planet. And then they have, and I'm going to have in my notes to ask the general about the 50 cents team, right? So they have these, I think, inmates and force people for what works out to be about 7 cents for us, posting to cause disruption in this country and discredit websites. But the general will talk about all that. It's a great book that he has out.
And folks, it could be worse if the power grid went down.
Yeah, well, absolutely, it could be worse if the power.
We might not survive 2 weeks.
Oh, I mean, could you imagine all this going on without the power grid? Right. First of all, you'd have to take all of the internet away. But by the way, the name Stealth War is the name of General Spalding's book, How China Took Over While America's Elite Slept. So that's his book, by the way. He'll be joining us in an hour or two. But yeah, it would be crazy if the power grid was right down. We would be back into the Stone Age.
About 5 minutes.
Well, yeah. What would happen in the medical front? All the hospitals would have to have gone to generator power, right? I mean, they'd have to be running on their own, under their own power. Could you imagine this? I mean, the death rate would go up. It would be crazy. It would be crazy. And they laugh at people who buy generators and stockpile, a couple of weeks or even a couple of months of food. You still there, Ken?
I'll throw one more curveball at you on another topic, Joe.
Mm-hmm.
Biden will not be the nominee.
Right. And again, folks, when I talk about Joe Biden, I am not being nasty here, and I'm not trying to be cheeky about this. And I feel bad because I think Joe Biden could have done his Senate career 8 years as VP, and then stepped and be remembered as, and as time goes by, he would have been remembered as a better and better politician, right? He would have become a statesman. A statesman is a politician plus time equals statesman. And I think keep putting him out there. And I have the most recent, Shane, I don't know if we lost that one too, but check out Joe Biden's gaffes. He's not ready for he's not, folks. He's not ready. Now they're talking about drafting Cuomo, Governor Cuomo from New York, right? He's doing these daily briefings, and everybody thinks, oh, my goodness, this is wonderful. He's not going to fly nationwide. Any New York mayor isn't going to be something people are going to swallow in the rest of the country. But I really think they're going to do a switcheroo on the nominee, or put a very strong VP under the understanding that the VP will become president very quickly, type of thing. But I agree, as time goes on, and Joe, has more exposure, and this helped him, Ken, the whole epidemic, because that's where our focus in. If we didn't have the coronavirus going on, wouldn't we be looking at Joe Biden more every day and would see more things? So this is actually helping him, because he really hasn't got any visibility because he's knocked off the stage.
Oh, he's had visibility anytime he's shown up. You look.
Yeah, but not the same he'd have. If we didn't have coronavirus, right, it would be, and his absence, right, because they pulled him back. And if we didn't have the coronavirus going on, them limiting his TV exposure or large groups would be noticed more. Right now, he can hide behind the coronavirus. And even when they've Skyped him from his, den or whatever, he's forgot he's on he thinks he's on a phone call. He forgets who he's talking to. So even that, but I agree with you. I think something's going to happen there. But I got to run. I got to see if I can get Gene in before we end the hour, Ken. Thank you so much for the call. Gene, we got about a minute here before we got to hit the line. So good morning, dear.
Good morning. And, Ken is such a fantastic caller, and you go over so much. And, Ken, praise Jesus. Keep it out there, Ken. Go through the Bible also, everybody, because once again, I want everybody to disprove me. 43 years I've been waiting. Now it's 44, because I'm now 44 years born again with Jesus this month, Joe. And did you get the picture of me to see how gorgeous I was? I sent it to you this week.
You sent it to me. I did see a box of chocolates in the green room.
Right. There were 2 things of chocolates I sent for WCRN.
Oh, 2 things of chocolate.
Oh, yeah.
I only saw one thing.
Well, probably gave them out yesterday.
Okay.
You had to give them to Hank and Ben and everybody.
Okay.
And I said first stops for Chris and Ted when I wrote out the card several days ago. But, you've got that wonderful manager. You've got this wonderful station, Joe. You have these unbelievable, eye-opening men on.
40 seconds. 40 seconds.
Would you thank him? Say Gene Giro, 611.
No, stop with that. I don't want to give your address out.
Massachusetts General.
But,
okay, thank you for loving America and being a patriot and taking stands and opening up eyes.
Gene, we love you, and we love that you listen to the station and that you are such a cheerleader for the radio station. But I've got to break because we're going to break for news. And coming back on the other side, stick with us because Brigadier General Robert Spalding is going to join us. And like I said, he's the author of that book, Stealth War. All right. It's going to be a fantastic conversation when we come back on the other side. I'm Joe Mangiacotti.
WACE Chicopee and WCRN Worcester.
Special report, coronavirus update. I'm Christopher Cruz. President Trump has given the Pentagon the authority to order former American troops and former members of the National Guard and Reserve to active duty. The order was issued late last night.
The executive order signed by the president allows Defense Secretary Mark Esper to order units and individual members and certain individual ready reserve members to active duty. This executive order states that anyone recalled can remain on active duty for up to 24 months straight. Decisions about which people may be activated are still being reviewed.
Correspondent Jeff McKay. President Trump has ordered General Motors to produce ventilators for coronavirus patients. He acted under the authority of the Defense Production Act. He said negotiations with GM had been productive, but weren't moving fast enough. Then he said GM was wasting time. GM says it continues to be open to making the ventilators. I'm Christopher Cruz. A cruise ship carrying 4 dead passengers has been denied permission to use the Panama Canal. The Holland-America Zaandam was headed for Fort Lauderdale, Florida, when it was turned away by Panamanian officials after they inspected it. Those checks the federal government is planning to send to many Americans may take too long to get to the people who need the money the most. Correspondent Steve Kastenbaum says some apps think they can distribute the money faster.
How would you like to receive your coronavirus stimulus payment via an app? Well, 2 payment app companies think it would be a quick way to inject the cash into the nation's economy, quicker than sending checks through the mail. Sources say Venmo and Cash App held conversations with the Treasury Department to discuss the idea. No word on whether Treasury officials were considering the possibility.
The United Nations says 86 of its workers around the world have tested positive for the coronavirus. Most of them are in Europe. I'm Christopher Cruz.
Please listen, this is important. Anyone can be affected by the prescription opioid crisis. If you think you've been hurt by Purdue or its prescription opioids like OxyContin, you may be entitled to compensation as part of Purdue's bankruptcy, but you have to file a claim. Claims may include overdose, death, substance use disorder, lost wages, and neonatal abstinence syndrome. A confidential claim can be filed by individuals, a legal guardian, by survivors or relatives of people who have died or are disabled. The deadline to file a claim is June 30th, 2020, or you will lose your right to file a claim. For more information, visit PurduePharmaClaims.com, or you can call toll-free 1-844-217-0912. That's 1-844-217-0912. Paid for by Prime Clerk, LLC.
7 o'clock.
I'm Reverend Peter Preble, host of Faith in America on WCRN 830 AM. On Faith in America, we hold conversations at the crossroads of faith and society. Faith in America, Sunday mornings at 6 a.m., right here on WCRN.
Okay, Mr. and Mrs. Lavache, you're all set with your mortgage, and I assume you understand what you just signed.
A stack of papers, George?
That's right. And for future, just call this number if you need anything. And, ooh, yeah, I'm gonna need that pen back.
The mortgage process can be confusing. Looking for the right rate, the right term, and most importantly, the right place to get your mortgage. At Clinton Savings Bank, we are committed to getting the mortgage that's right for you. You may even receive up to a $750 credit off your closing costs. Plus, right now, you can lock in the rate from your pre-qualification for 90 days while you look for a home. So what are you waiting for? Definitely not this.
Oh, boy. Hi, Mrs. Lavache. How can I help? Oh, you're breaking up. Try again later.
Subject to credit approval. Offer may be withdrawn at any time. For complete details, exclusions, and credit costs and terms, call 888-744-4272. Apply at ClintonSavings.com. NMLS number 422081. Member FDIC. Member DIF. Equal housing lender.
I want to tell you what Cantiani Insurance has been able to do for me and Teddy. We stopped in to see Paul Sr. and the great staff at 318 Plantation Street. They've been handling my car and business insurance for years. Teddy was making his way around the office, and they let me know. They now offer pet insurance. For a fraction of what one visit to the vet was for Teddy, they could cover him for a whole year. I know you treat your furry family members like any other family member, and as well as I do Teddy. The professional staff at Cantiani has been providing courteous service for over 40 years, with integrity and personalized service, making sure that your insurance actually protects you and your family. With 2 locations, the 318 Plantation Street in Worcester and East Douglas Insurance Agency, located at 306 Main Street in Douglas. For home, auto, business insurance, and now pet insurance, click CantianiAgency.com or call 508-791-2088. 508-791-2088. All right, folks, welcome back to Hour 2 of the TJM show here on AM 830 WCRN and our sister station AM 730 WACE in the western part of the state. And, of course, live streaming on the TuneIn app. You can take us anywhere. Just punch in WCRN and download it if you don't have it. Our call-in line is 508-871-7000, 508-871-7000. Lines are open and available, and our text line is up and running at 617-297-8388, or email us at textjoeontheradio@gmail.com, and, of course, Messenger on our Facebook page. All right, coming up now is a very impressive guest we're going to have here, and I'm honored to have him join us. Let me invite into the conversation Brigadier General Robert S. Spalding III, who is United States Air Force retired, is a senior fellow at the Hudson Institute, focusing on U.S. China relations, economic and national security, and the Asia-Pacific military balance. He's also the author of Stealth War, How China Took Over While America's Elite Slept. So, good morning, General. It's a pleasure and an honor to have you join us this morning.
Good morning. Thank you. Great to be here.
Man, you have one impressive resume, sir. I got to tell you.
Thank you.
The Bachelor of Science, the PhD, the Master's, but it's awesome to see commander of bomber squadrons and chief of staff of bomber squadrons and deputy commander of the 509th Operations Group. Very impressive, sir. You've had a very distinguished career in the Air Force.
I've been very blessed.
And talented. and obviously a very intelligent man, which leads me to the questions concerning China. And let me tell you something, we didn't get much of an opportunity to communicate before the show, but China has scared the bejesus out of me for a long time. And I think it's justified. And not because of the COVID-19 or the Wuhan virus, whatever the semantics are there. I'm talking about the control that China has worked for decades, have worked into our universities and our corporations. And you've written this book, Stealth War, How China Took Over While America's Elite Slept. Tell me the premise of the book and the reason that you put pen to paper on this.
Well, so my last, I did have a long career in the Air Force flying B-2s, but my last 6 years really were focused on China. I was the chief China strategist for the chairman of the Joint Chiefs, and then I went to be the defense attaché and senior defense official in Beijing prior to going to the White House and working on the national security strategy in the first year of the Trump administration. And all of that was focused on this economic competition that I worked on while I was at the Pentagon, and it's been a very interesting journey. I've run into a lot of people like you that said that they've been concerned about this for a long time, and there's been a lot of people that have voiced concern, but unfortunately, we didn't really do anything about it. And so the idea of the book was really to get the information out there that I'd learned over this journey, working in my last few years in the military on this, and tell people why the national security strategy is the way it is, why the Trump administration is pursuing all of these efforts with regard to the Chinese government, and to let people know that we have a real challenge in our hands. This coronavirus really gives us an opportunity to see how really the depth of it.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, we've got China. Look, we have examples of China having spies in our universities, in our corporations. We also are looking at, they're pushing this 5G big time. And 5G should be very concerning, not just because of the radiation effects of it, right, that goes along with it, but what will that do to the Android and Apples of the world, and how does that benefit China by going to 5G?
Well, I think that's the whole point of the national security strategy, saying that data is a strategic asset. China's leading artificial intelligence researcher says that China seeks to become the Saudi Arabia of data.
Yeah.
because data powers artificial intelligence. It's the fuel for artificial intelligence. And this is what 5G is about. It's really about those machines that are going to be attached to the network that are going to be ostensibly making our lives better. But in China, they've taken that model that Silicon Valley's developed. You mentioned Android and Apple, that the data that Google, Facebook, and Amazon collect on you and then use to influence you to buy things is exactly the same type of methodology China's using to control their population. And they want to build that into their companies, not just domestically, but abroad. They want the power to shut off, you from talking about things that they don't want their population to hear. And that's what they tried to do with Daryl Morey of the Houston Rockets, but they're going to have far more power as time goes on.
And I think that should have been a little bit of a wake-up call and a peek behind the curtain for America or Americans when they saw that happen with the NBA. And let me ask you this and go off for a second here, because when I say this, your talk show host, whatever, I think if you say and tell us what the real situation is in China, people are going to believe it and take it a little more seriously. And what I mean by that is, look, at China is a nasty regime, and they punish their own people, they imprison people, they have killed prisoners and their own people to ends that mystify me. Can you speak to what is really happening in China? I mean, I don't think it's hyperbole to liken them to Nazi or Stalinist at all.
It's really not. And, for that, you can go look at the UK tribunal on the forced organ harvesting of prisoners of conscience. So there's been documented organ trade in China where, you can go to China, schedule a heart transplant, and then essentially go over and have it done. And the way it's done is somebody's pulled out of prison. Many times they're religious dissident. Their organs are taken out and they're given to you, and you pay a hefty price for it, but you've got a transplant. Now, the way that this was found out, the head of the Transplant Association in Israel, who himself was a heart transplant doctor, found out one of his patients was going to China, had scheduled a heart transplant in China. And he said, well, how can you schedule a heart transplant? And so he did the investigation. So to this date, Israel is the only country in the world that's banned travel to China for the purpose of organ transplant, because they know what's going on, which is tens of thousands of people are essentially being slaughtered for their organs, and those are being sold to the highest bidder, whether you're a Communist Party leader or somebody from outside the country that needs an organ and has the means to pay for one.
I don't know about you. I mean, that sends a chill up my spine, literally, sitting in the studio listening to you say this.
It's horrifying.
It is horrifying. And doesn't this seem like something that we would see on a cheesy Saturday night movie?
It absolutely does, and this is the power of China. And by the way, it's the same power, this power to control and hide information. It's the same power that has this country on its knees because of the coronavirus. We just reported 3 million jobs lost because they were not upfront and open and letting us know that this pandemic was starting in their midst. They could have shut it down, but no. Instead, they hid, lied, destroyed evidence. And now we're dealing with this. The whole globe is.
Oh, absolutely. I actually opened the program this morning, General, saying that don't believe for a second that the United States is now leading in the coronavirus diagnosis, because China is lying to us. They're also in the same breath telling us that they have no new cases, yet there are new cases in Hong Kong and Taiwan, yet they tell us that Hong Kong and Taiwan are part of China. Of course, Taiwan, and by the way, I this past year I married a Taiwanese national, and they don't consider themselves Chinese at all, by the way, as you know, and I see that you speak Spanish and Chinese Mandarin. But they don't consider themselves Chinese, right? The Taiwanese.
Well, you're certainly not in the way that
China
they
does.
want to be subjects of the Chinese Communist Party, that would be that. I mean, and that's essentially what, if you live in China, you are a subject of the Chinese Communist Party. And unfortunately, the reason I think your fears were never picked up on here in this country is we just don't understand the nature of the regime.
Well, I agree with that, and I think if and I've said this about the organ harvesting, and I have been poo-pooed. Just no, you know, you're another one of those talk show hosts that, you know, saying this phony stuff and spreading fake news. It's like,
well,
wow.
Yeah. Then I would, you know, the same, you know, but they see with the coronavirus that, you know, it's actually true. They have the ability to cover things up, to hide things. And this, you know, it presents itself in different ways. You know, by the way, they also have concentration camps, which you say concentration camps, and you think, okay, Hitler, we wouldn't allow that to happen again. But yet it exists today in Xinjiang, where you have 3 million Uyghurs that are in concentration camps. Oh, by the way, a lot of those are organ transplant victims because of, you know, they typically lead good, healthy, clean lives. And so.
And, you know, months ago, General, when people like AOC were out there saying that our Border Patrol, right, and our ICE detention centers were concentration camps, that sent me over the edge as well, because, first of all, how dare you compare those to, you know, the Nazi concentration camps, but also, no, the concentration camps in China are actually concentration camps. Don't insult our Border Patrol, our ICE agents, and the survivors of real concentration camps by saying that about United States detention centers. I mean, no comparison, correct?
Well, yeah, and certainly no Uyghur would even make that comparison. Usually, it's somebody that makes that comparison that's never lived under a totalitarian regime and has never experienced the repression. But usually, they come from a democracy, so they have the freedom to actually make those comparisons. People that have actually lived it, there's no way that you would ever get them to say something that idiotic.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I can liken that to Bernie Sanders' comments about Castro and how that affected the Cuban population in this country, who were like, wow, you clearly don't know what you're talking about. The people who actually lived under Castro's regime and escaped to this country. I think it's kind of an analogy there about that. Going back to China, did they not? My understanding is that, you know, and I've always said this, China thinks in terms of decades and centuries when they plan, whether it's business or anything else, where we tend to be more short-term, immediate gratification and immediate, you know, quarter, right? We run our businesses by the quarter, and they kind of run it long distance. Don't forget, China also subsidizes their companies. I mean, it's a very blurry line, isn't it, where the government starts and ends and the business starts and ends. And did they not, decades ago, look at this situation with the internet and cell phones and start planning their long-term goals then? And including, was it the early 90s that they built this massive firewall?
Yeah, so actually, it wasn't the 90s. I was there. I actually lived there from 2002 to 2004, and the firewall wasn't yet in existence. But it came soon thereafter, or the firewall wasn't heavily used. I think there's actually a good paper called A Treaty on Efficacy that describes how they look at strategy differently, and it gets to your point. Instead of picking a goal and mustering resources and heading for it and thinking of it over a time horizon, they actually try to adapt themselves to the trends they see. And the two trends that the Chinese Communist Party saw was globalization, and the internet was going to provide them opportunity to have access to every institution in the West that they could begin to infiltrate and undermine. And so rather than building a military They really focused on building their businesses, global champions, and then really building a secure internet at home so that they could bombard the West, if you will, with propaganda from a bastion. And so, going back to Kai-Fu Lee and this idea of the Saudi Arabia of data, they have come to realize that they now are in a key position to dominate the future because they built a system that protects their ability to, have global champions as companies at home, but then subsidize those and deploy them into the societies abroad. And then increasingly, as this data becomes more and more part of our lives, and as cameras and microphones and machines get deployed in the cities, their ability to conduct surveillance and then use that to influence and control is incredibly powerful. They demonstrate that on a daily basis in China. And in fact, if you look at what they're doing with the coronavirus, they went to India and they told them, hey, we want to help you with the coronavirus. We want to deploy a 5G network because that's how we use what we use to monitor temperatures around the cities and control the population. So if they saw somebody with a fever, they basically send the squad and throw them in a locked
General, can we pause there for a second? Did you just say that with the 5G blanketing that they can actually monitor our temperature walking down the street?
So what they did is because the 5G network allows you to attach 3 million devices per square mile. 4G is only 10,000. So you're an exponential level of connectivity. Now what they've done is use that to deploy sensors around the city so they can monitor people. They can monitor their temperature, and then if they have a fever, they can send a squad car to go and round them up and throw them and lock them away. That's essentially what they told the Indians that they wanted to do. So you really begin to get an idea how this system is intended to be used, and that's why when I was at the White House, I wrote a paper on this, and actually the telco industry was incredibly fearful of it and really had the paper leaked. So it was you can go back to the beginning of January 18. That paper is still online where I was calling for securing the 5G network because it's right now unsecure, and it doesn't matter who builds it because China controls the technology.
Yeah. See, now, where are we going to go with this? Because, and the president, of course, when he speaks about anything, right, that actually makes sense and is for the betterment of the American citizen, he gets called all kinds of names and accused of ulterior motives and that he's a racist and a bigot and all of that. But China is, and you go back to this with they didn't have to build up the military, the actual soldiers and boots on the grounds, because they look at the opportunity to fight this with the monitoring. Now, the 5G, do we not also have the concerns of the radiation from that, right? I mean, isn't that a very unhealthy thing? I mean, that's dangerous physically to our bodies.
Well, so that has been proposed, and primarily that's in what's considered the high band or millimeter wave. Now, those systems were being deployed only in terms of a nationwide network thought of here in the United States. Every other country around the world is actually deploying 5G using some of the frequencies that are of the mid band, which are more in line with what has been used for satellite communication and radars and some telecommunication. But in the United States, since that is a lot of that frequency spectrum is owned already, we didn't have any to give to the telco industry, and the telco industry likes to buy their spectrum, and so they started to buy in the high band or millimeter wave. I honestly don't believe that's going to be deployed because it's far too expensive, because it doesn't go very far, and it requires you to put up too many antennas. It's an incredibly expensive deployment if we were to do that in the United States, and I think it represents the folly of policy and business strategy when it's trying to go against the laws of physics.
Wow. Now, China, of course, have infiltrated our universities and our businesses. Didn't we have kind of a buying spree from China on patents and copyrights a few years ago?
Yeah, and I think that if you look today in the telecommunications industry and increasingly in microelectronics and semiconductors, the Chinese are surpassing us. And, if you look at the way we were investing in the country in the 60s in technology and research and STEM education and infrastructure and manufacturing, it was really allowed for places like Silicon Valley to develop in Boston as technology hubs because it was part of the space race. It was part of this Cold War fight. We invested in ourselves. And if you look at what we've done since the end of the Cold War, we basically stopped. The country that's been doing that and using a lot of our own money, by the way, to do that has been China. And so now they are sitting there with tremendous infrastructure, tremendous manufacturing capability, tremendous science and technology, so much so that Facebook, Amazon, and Google have AI research centers in Beijing because they know that's where the top artificial intelligence research is going on now. And we've basically allowed over the last 25 years the transfer of our technology, our innovation, our talent, and our capital into a totalitarian regime to promote their power over us. And it's been a tragedy, and this is why I wrote the book. It's concerning.
By the way, I want to make sure people understand that the book, by the way, folks, is called Stealth War, by how China took over. Well, America's elite slept, and I want to ask about that tagline in a second, by Robert Spalding, and it is on Amazon. I know that. I actually put your link up on my social media accounts, folks, so you can go over to either my Facebook page, Joe Manji Show, Joe Manji on Twitter, and get the link to Amazon for the book. I just got the link and PDF download late last night, so unfortunately I didn't really get into the book, but I'm looking forward to it. And tell people, go check it out. You can get it there, and they can follow you on Twitter at Robert_Spalding with no U, correct?
Correct.
All right,
yeah.
so that's also up on my accounts as well. But the other concern I have so many concerns when it comes to China, right? And people call me, I'm nuts about, you're crazy, you're wrong. It's a great relationship. I think the president sees the danger that's there too. What about the agreements between the U.S. and China that allows certain technology and access to
2 minutes. Know-how?
Well, so when I was in the Pentagon, I got an email one day from the National Security Council asking if we had any objections to a new re-upping the 1-2-3 agreement with China. And of course, I had no idea what a 1-2-3 agreement was, so I had to do some research. And essentially, this was a 50s era agreement on peaceful, on cooperation on peaceful nuclear technology. And of course, I looked at it and I said, okay, well, what we're doing is we're transferring know-how that we actually use to make some of the finest submarines and aircraft carriers in the world because of how we, our technology and nuclear power. And I said, this is not in the national interest. It's clearly counter to national security. And of course, I was overruled, and this was during the Obama administration, because they wanted to
45 seconds
the AP1000 reactor, which is a Westinghouse reactor, to
General,
the Chinese for $4 billion.
This is radio. We have hard breaks. Can you hold over? Are you able to do that? All right, excellent.
Sure.
Sorry about that. It's the way that it is. I'm sure you understand that in radio. Guys, we have a hard break. We're going to break for Handling Change and hear from Brian Gay from One Worcester Homes. He's going to talk a little bit about the market. We'll be back right on the other side with General Robert Spalding III, and we'll continue on the Joe Mangiacotti Show in just a few moments. Stick with us here on AM 830 WCRN. morning and welcome to Handle and Change from the Cantiani Insurance Studios. I'm Joe Mangiacotti, and Gary Gay of One Worcester Homes joins us this week. The purchase or sale of your home or investment property could be one of the largest challenges you have, and Gary can help you handle those challenges. First of all, good morning, Gary, and second, welcome to Handling Change.
Hey, good morning, Joe, and thank you very much for having me here. I appreciate the opportunity to educate buyers and sellers about the market.
Well, I'm excited. Normally, our listeners are used to Brian, and Brian's the boss over there.
Yep.
Yeah, and so you're going to join us for the next foreseeable future?
I'll be here for the foreseeable future. The boss man handed it off, and I'm looking forward to continuing to grow the avenue.
That's fantastic. Let us start by asking the simple question, right? How is the market?
I get that question all the time, Joe. You'd be surprised. Spring market is definitely here. This is the time of year where the most homes are transferred and most homes are sold and purchased. Interest rates are also at a record low right now. I'm getting some quotes under 3% for first-time home buyers, so that's pretty impressive. The inventory in and around Worcester is also extremely low. A lot of people just aren't ready to sell, which makes it difficult, when you're working with buyers to help them find what they're looking for. And when they do find what they're looking for, they're often competing for it.
Well, Gary, let me ask you this. Is it a good time to sell your home? We hear the term buyer's market, seller's market. Is this a good time to sell?
It's definitely a good time to sell. I would never pressure any of my sellers to sell a home if they're not ready. It's oftentimes not a question of the market, but if their personal life is ready to take that next step and make the next change. Let me tell you a little story about my buyers, Jason and Jessica. They were first-time home buyers. We looked at a beautiful property in Warren, Mass, and it was busy. We actually went during the open house, and there were people in and out of the property all day. I knew that going in, that it was going to be a competition. They absolutely fell in love with the house from the moment they walked in. Felt like it was home. They just loved everything about it. It had a nice little river behind it. It was just a great backscape and really where they wanted to be, and they could see their family growing. So I was very straightforward with them, and we ended up placing a very aggressive offer that was what the market property that we felt of the property, not necessarily the listing price, which can be very different. So there's many marketing strategies in today's market to get your house sold for the most amount of money. And some of those are actually pricing the property pretty low. That's one of the most aggressive strategies and one of the best strategies that I use myself. So you price it a little bit low, and the reason for that is you drive traffic into your house and you have people compete for your house, which is what causes all these buyers to come in.
So that can actually drive the price up
Absolutely.
Beyond what you would have asked at the normal listing price.
Yes, absolutely. And I've had it done. I've used the strategy time and time again, and it almost always works. The market will pay what the market price for that house is. The listing price doesn't necessarily matter. And in this case, the price of the house was relatively low. We felt it was almost $30,000 under market price. So we went in very aggressively with the offer, and we had strong financing. We tried to limit the amount of contingencies we had on the house. Now, I would never recommend a first-time home buyer not do an inspection. So we didn't. We had an inspection in there. And then the other things we did, I had my clients write a personal letter to the seller. This doesn't always work, but the strategy is one that I use time and time again, and it does help in most situations.
It can tip the scales, can it not? Because you've got this, and I'm assuming the seller probably raised a family in this house. They've been there for a long time, and there's a part of them that probably wants that house to go to somebody that either reminds them of themselves or some way they can feel they're helping out maybe a young couple.
Yeah, absolutely. And we noticed some of those things when we were walking through the home the first time, because obviously you usually don't meet with the sellers, but you can see things like a kid's room or toys. So we knew that they were probably a young couple who had multiple kids and kind of outgrew the house. So we were able to play on not just a sales price and giving them an aggressive offer, which sometimes can't be beat, but we were also able to pull at their heartstrings a little bit and tell them that my client was going to buy this house. They really wanted it. They could see themselves in it, and that they were going to do the same thing. They were going to raise a family there and enjoy the property and continue the legacy of that property on. And in this case, it worked, and we actually had our offer accepted over a higher sales price offer, which I was very impressed with.
Well, Gary, that's a fantastic story, and it sounds like you employed some great strategy there.
Yeah, thanks very much, Joe. And this is, one time where this strategy worked. There's many other strategies too that we can talk on during other shows. The biggest thing is working with an agent who understands these different strategies and when to deploy each one.
Thank you, Gary, for stopping in, and looking forward to talking to you month after month.
All right, thanks very much, Joe. I appreciate you having me today.
And thank you for joining us for Handling Change from the Cantiani Insurance Studios. Join us each week at 7:30 as we give you the tools to handle the changes in your life. Visit us at handlingchange.info, and you can find Gary and all the fantastic realtors at One Worcester Home on Facebook.
20 seconds, we're back, and we have Keith Lambert called in as well.
You can call Gary at 413-427-5506. For Gary, I'm Joe Mangiacotti.
This is the Joe Mangiacotti Show. We are the show.
All right, folks, welcome back to the final segment here, the Joe Mangiacotti Show on AM 830 WCRN and AM 730 WACE. And don't forget, we're live streaming on the WCRN site as well as the TuneIn app. Just punch in WCRN and you can take us anywhere. 508-871-7000 to join the conversation. That's 508-871-7000. And our text line is up and operating at 617-297-8388. 617-297-8388, or email me at textjoeontheradio@gmail.com. Thanks for the messages. Online with me is Brigadier General Robert Spalding III, retired United States Air Force. Incredible resume, far too long to list out here, but you've had a very distinguished career. And then in, was it 2017, General, advisor to the President, and you were in the White House, you've been in the Pentagon. Ladies and gentlemen, he is the author of the book Stealth War, How China Took Over While America's Elite Slept. Now, you can find that on Amazon. If you go to my Facebook page or Twitter account, you can get the link to get over to Amazon and get a hold of the book. Also, General, if we'll take some calls, if that's okay with you.
Absolutely.
All right, 508-871-7000. And prior to the break, you were telling us the story of the 1-2-3 agreement, or I don't know what it was, but you were explaining to us. You were in the Pentagon during the Obama administration. They come to you and say, as National Security Council, we want to re-up this agreement 1-2-3. And of course, you said, well, let me find out what that is first. And could you take that up from where you left off? What is that, and what did it mean?
Yeah, so it's from the United States Atomic Energy Act, section of 1954, section 123, and it's titled Cooperation with Other Nations in Nuclear Power. And so what they wanted to do was sell the Westinghouse AP1000 reactor, which is a civil nuclear reactor. But what you find is because of the shrinking of the nuclear energy industry in the United States, that a lot of these engineers and scientists that work on the AP1000 reactor also work on naval nuclear reactors that we use in our submarines. And so I said, well, what's going to happen here is you're going to transfer the know-how of how we, do troubleshooting and design of nuclear reactors. And these are some of the most secret,
classified chips,
classified information in the U.S. government for national security. And this is absolutely crazy that we would be sharing this with the Chinese Communist Party. By the way, a party that grows, even though that they dominate economically, they're growing their military power far greater than us in the Pacific because of their ability to produce so many ships. And so we were going to give them the power of our nuclear technology. And of course, I was completely rolled by the bureaucracy, and because we wanted to make we wanted to allow Toshiba, who had bought into Westinghouse, the ability to make $4 billion selling these plans to the Chinese Communist Party, and that's consistent with the things that you've been talking about, the dangers of doing business with these guys. And of course, we've been doing it. And so when I say the elite slept, it's kind of pejorative, because the elites really weren't asleep. They actually, some of them benefited from it. Some of them quite handsomely. I talk about that in my book too, on both political sides, on the right and the left, where they, have used this to enhance their own pocketbooks, if you will.
General, if we dug into that, how much feather bedding would we find with American politicians and China?
Billions of dollars. Yeah. And clearly, if you go, in fact, because we've actually, since the Trump administration, we've actually forced a lot of these people to register as a foreign agent and register, particularly as they're working for foreign governments. There's all kinds of registries now about money pouring into our political campaigns and lobbying in Washington, D.C. And this is the other thing I found when I was at the White House, was that, as I looked for help on coming up with policy solutions for countering what China was doing, I went to think tanks and law firms, both in Washington and New York City. And the consistent answer I got 100% of the time was, we can't help you because we don't want to anger our Chinese funders or clients. And so
we don't want to upset our masters, is what they're saying.
This is how pervasive it is. It's throughout our system, and I don't think people. So that's why I wrote the book, because people need to understand that, what's driving our society is not the values and principles that our forefathers, founded this country on. It's actually greed, and that greed translates into policies that the Chinese Communist Party are advocating for in our system.
Wow. Well, let me ask you, this is scary stuff. Like I said, I've been worried about China for a long, long time. People tell me that, we're global, we're a small world, globalism, one world order, all of this, we have nothing to fear. I think just the opposite of that, by the way. And despite all of this damage that has been done in the situation that we have, is it still possible for the U.S. and the rest of the free world, and I do think that we're talking about free worlds versus a totalitarian system like China, is it still possible for us to reverse the damage done, to alter the trend here and fix this? Can it be fixed, General?
Absolutely. And in fact, starting in the first quarter of 2018, so the national security strategy comes out in December of 2017. I leave in February of 2018 to go back to the Pentagon. In the first quarter of 2018, the Trump administration finally begins to push back. And a lot of the stuff that I had been working on at the Pentagon contributed to that. And so this coronavirus has awoken the American people to the danger of having our supply chain in China. So what we're talking about here is use the technology, talent, innovation, and capital of our nation to actually rebuild our country. And that's what the president is trying to do. That's what the national security strategy calls for, rebuilding our infrastructure, rebuilding our manufacturing, investing in research and technology, and putting our own kids through STEM education. And then finally, and this is most important, building a secure encrypted internet for the American people so their data can't be stolen either from their business or personally, and used to either steal their intellectual property or influence them in ways that are counter to their principles. And when I talk about influence,
Don's got a point for the general. We got about 10 minutes left, and we have Keith Lambert.
Big data analysis and social media networks that allowed for the Russians to create a protest in New York City in 2016, right after the election, that called for 15 to 20,000 people to march up to Trump Tower. Now, people don't realize the power of these technologies that Silicon Valley built because we don't allow them to be used in that way. But the Russians and the Chinese absolutely do. And this is what they essentially are learning from each other on how to manipulate these to influence democracies away from democratic principles. This is the power of the free world after the Cold War that we built, that now we are slowly being strangled by.
Wow. And see, there's that march, huh? So there's some power for you right there. 508-871-7000. General, let's take a call from Dawn, regular caller to the show. Good morning, Dawn. You're on with General Spalding III. Dawn. Did we lose Dawn?
Hello.
There we are. We got Dawn. Dawn, you're on with the General.
Hi, General. Many years ago in the 1970s, I was with the Army Security Agency up at Fort Devens. And much of the information that you've been discussing is very impressive. And I used to work with much of that equipment back years ago. But I know now it's leaps and bounds ahead of what we used to have. But, it was interesting talking about millimeter wave and that. Basically, that's line of sight. And in order for it to travel any distance, you need the height of towers so that you'll be able to take and cover a larger area. But then you're dealing with higher power, and then you're dealing with radiation, and God only knows what you'll be doing to other equipment when you're interfering with the frequencies, you're pumping out this radiation, and you might be shutting off people's pacemakers, hearing aids, and other electronics. I mean, it's just incredible. But I'm sadly to say, General, that so many Americans will not even grasp what you're talking about, sir. Go ahead.
Yeah, that's right. What they intend to do, because even if you put it up on a high tower in a dense urban environment, the city, just the walls of the city block it. So that means you have to put antennas literally everywhere, and that's, as I say, it's too expensive to really deploy. And so the way I see it being used is actually at a lower power in a deployment like in a stadium or in a factory. It's just not conducive to building a network. And I've talked to the folks that are building these things in a lot of the cities, and they run into so many challenges with the municipalities in terms of how to deploy these in ways that they are happy with, and then how the expense of it is just one of the things that you run into. So I actually think it was a failed initiative by the FCC and the telecom industry to take and reuse a area of the spectrum that's really meant for things like millimeter wave is used, by the way, at the airports when you get scanned. That's the millimeter wave because it doesn't pass through the body. And so it's good for scanning things hidden weapons that might be on your person. So that's really what this frequency is used for.
Wow.
Yeah. No. Okay. Well, thank you, General. Unless you got any questions, Joe, or anything?
No, thank you, Don. Always appreciate the call.
Thank you.
All right, General, this is a lot of information that we've shared, and I think maybe, hopefully, woken a few people up, opened their eyes to some things. Before we leave, what is it that you would want to leave people with? The average person out there listening to this, listening to our conversation today, is there anything that we can do to protect our persons, protect our information, our data? Is there anything that we should do as far as specifically asking our representatives and senators to do something or not do something? How would you leave it for advice today?
Yeah, so what I would say is that politically we need to think about how our country's been run for the last 30 years, and we need to change, and we need to begin to invest in ourselves. And there are things like, having our retirement funds sent to China because the SEC, the Securities and Exchange Commission, doesn't require Chinese companies to go through the same audit and transparency requirements that our own companies have to go through. And so this allows for hundreds of billions of our dollars to go to China. What I would say is you need to talk to your representatives. And this is, by the way, on the left and the right. So when you talk about these challenges, the president is up against not only the Democratic Party, but also the Republican Party. And what you need to know is that Wall Street is against you and corporate America is against you. And we need to really, think about how we allow the Chinese Communist Party to take our technology, talent, innovation, and capital and build their country over ours. And we can change these rules, but you have to be aware, and your representative, if they don't understand this, and if they're allowing corporate America and Wall Street to continue to take your money and send it to China and not build the factories in your own communities, then you ought to say, hey, we need somebody else in office.
And on that note, is President Trump recognizing the problems, the dangers, and doing the right things to fix it?
He is, but if you just look at what's going on with the coronavirus, he said all of our medicines come from China, all of our antibiotics. We need to actually produce them here in the United States. And what happened? The pharmaceutical industry fought it, and he was trying to get ventilators built, and he's getting manufacturers fighting. Right? They want to build this stuff in China. And he said no. So he had to invoke the Defense Production Act. Corporate America is not on the side of the American people. Mm-hmm. It's on the side of big margins and the Chinese Communist Party, and more than happy to help them with that by subsidizing their manufacturing so that they can keep the manufacturing there. So at times like this, we're beholden to them. We need them.
See, if there's for no other reason, we should keep this president in office if it's for nothing other than bringing this home.
he's the only one that
2 minutes.
first time gets it.
Yeah.
And I was in the Pentagon in 2016 working on the strategy, and I'm like, I don't know how he gets it or why he gets it, but he's clearly the only one that does. And by the way, the rest of the establishment on the right and the left want to continue this relationship with the Chinese Communist Party, and it's killing us.
Wow. General, unfortunately, I'm against the clock. I would love to listen to you more, but I got to remind people to go to my page to get the link over, or go right to Amazon. It's Stealth War, Robert Spalding. Get the book. I thank you, General, for taking time out. I know it's early, and I appreciate it greatly.
Thank you.
And I'd love to have you back sometime.
Absolutely.
All right, Jen, you have a good day. All right, folks, that was General Spalding. Fantastic information. You can catch, of course, this up online later. The podcast will be up. Before we leave, let me jump to Keith Lambert from New England for Trump. Hey, Keith, thanks for holding. I hope you heard some of that conversation with General Spalding and telling us Trump's the only guy getting it.
Absolutely, Joe. How's it going this morning?
Fantastic. Any news on the front of the New England for Trump stores we should know about?
Yeah, unfortunately, because of the state mandate, we had to close the 5 stores, the retail stores. It's not a essential business,
right?
As they call it. But the website is up and running. We worked really hard all week, and now people can go and purchase merchandise off of the website. So that
30 seconds ish.
All right, give me the website real quick because we're running out of time. Where they go?
Oh, it's www.nefortrump.com.
nefortrump.com.
NEFOR Trump.com.
There you go. Keith, thank you so much, man. Fantastic. We'll remind people on tomorrow's show to go there as well. Thank you. All right, folks, I'll wrap it up. Tomorrow morning, 6 o'clock, Faith in America. I join you at 7 a.m. Coming up next, Gary Goldman, Business, Politics, and Lifestyles on AM 830 WCRN.
We're going to lunch. This is Out with Joe. With Joe Mangiacotti.
Actually, honey, we're going to lunch.
Restaurants.
You can get anything you want at Alice's restaurant.
Food and drink.
And when their ham and eggs need savor, coffee, ketchup gives them flavor.
Entertainment.
I like to have a little something going every day. Maybe nothing big, but a little daily recreation don't hurt me.
Put some bacon on a biscuit and let's go.
It's time to go out with Joe.
Welcome to this edition of Out with Joe, brought to you by Nothing Bundt Cakes and White